Supervisor Cassiola is either. We can take it out and take a vote on it this evening, or we can table it and address it later. 3B's so far down the road, you could come back next month and re-explain to us why that's necessary if you feel inclined to do so, but I think right now, the only way this is gonna pass is if we take out that.
As long as that doesn't cause any issue, I think that that's a good idea. If we can take out the financial security now,
Okay.
and if it's an issue, when we come back before the board for final approval of 3A,
Yep.
if we need to amend it at that point, we can hear that before 3A is decided upon.
Yep.
That works.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
I have a motion on the table.
I'm sorry.
Deal with that, please.
You did. There's a motion to table. Is there a second? Dies for lack of a second. I'll make them. Yeah.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wait, you want it tabled, Tom?
Yeah, they're not gonna move through B like you said anyway.
Well, that is true. But this wraps up 3A. Do you want these in two separate changes? Because the condition for 5 change is for 3, no. It's for 3A. No, it's for 3B. Okay.
Both of them.
Yeah. It's been, okay, so let's read that. There's a motion and a second to table. All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's tabled. Well, it'll be on the agenda next month.
Okay.
Moving on. 153/2021. Consider ratifying the filing of an appeal on case number 2020-6277, Range Resources Appalachia LLC versus Cecil Township Bernard Shultz well pattern. For those of you that aren't aware, we got a judge's decision on the appeal of our approval with conditions for the Bernard Shultz well pad. And I don't remember who came to.
Sure, yeah. So there was an order of court dated July 2nd of this year. Any appeal would need to be filed by August 2nd. Actually, before that, but August 2nd happened to be Monday, which was the last day to appeal, which was in advance of the board's formal meeting. During that time period, in between the filing, the judge filing the appeal and that date, Range Resources had filed an appeal of that order. And they called me and they called it a protective appeal with the hopes to have some settlement discussions. So obviously to protect the township's rights, the township wanted to appeal as well. Now that appeal had to be formally filed, as I said, the day before the meeting that night. So I filed it because I had the authority to file it. There was some question as to whether I had the authority or not. And of course, after you'd have to do something like that because of timing, you want to ratify anyway. But there was a question raised as to my authority to file that. So tonight, the board would just be ratifying the fact that they're approving that appeal to be filed. And you'll also see in the next motion that it's getting settled and wrapped up tonight as well. So,
You want to talk about this one here, vote and then.
yeah, we could vote on that one and then we could.
Okay. So I have a motion to approve 153/2021.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. There. You say aye.
You asked for aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Tom, did you say aye? Sorry. Okay, so four.
Tom said what?
He said yes. 154/2021, consider entering into settlement agreement between Range Resources Appalachia LLC and Cecil Township related to case number 2020-6277. That's what I started talking about, which is Supervisors Fleer and Cassiola went to a settlement meeting with members of Range's council along with Gretchen to represent the board and negotiated a very fixed settlement agreement with Range. Some of the conditions on the initial appeal we won, some of the conditions they won. We sat down and, not we, Supervisors Cassiola and Fleer sat down and talked about some things that were important to the township, and Range brought to light some things that were important to them. The three main things that were negotiated were, Range at their expense is gonna pay for air quality monitoring, that, the township will be a client of the company, so therefore we have access to the direct data from the air quality monitoring, as well as they will as well. The second thing was an emergency notification system. That was something that was pushed for in the initial conditional use, and we actually won in court. There just needed to be some clarification about how that system worked and who was notified and how people got notified. That was upheld in court. They were allowed the notification within 3,000 feet. And we're going to continue to do that. We found a company, Range found a company that we actually really like, and we're going to use so that if you're within so many feet of the well and you're notified whether you need to shelter in place, whether you need to leave, whatever you need to do, because sometimes those minutes matter. And then again, I keep forgetting about the third one.
The extension of the start of the grading. So initially, so the judge upheld our original condition, which was that under our conditional use process, under 403H, you have to actually kind of put a shovel in the ground before 1 year after your conditional use approval. Otherwise, if you need additional time, you come back to this board and you can seek additional time. And this board does have the authority to grant up to an additional year of time to get started. So in the case of a well, that date is kind of determined when they start grading for the construction of the well pad. So that initial date fell in,
Yeah, it's right here. The township, October 5th, 2022, to commence grading.
okay, yes. So the board essentially is extending it to October 5th, 2022, so that giving them the additional year that they would have the ability to extend that if Range had come back to them before the end of the first year, which hasn't come up yet either. That would be October of this year.
It doesn't actually grant them any additional time. They have the same, it just takes out that approval process, which 9.5 times out of 10 happens anyways. So it just gives them, and then that's their drop dead date essentially. They either put a shovel in the ground and grade, or the approval goes away.
Right, so they don't have to come back to this board at next month's meeting, or I guess technically they might be coming to this month's meeting to formally ask this board.
And
then some of the other conditions were cleaned up or added back in. For example, they agreed to add the prohibition on not prohibition, that they wouldn't use Jake breaks, and I forget what the language is, but we had asked for it to be a prohibition, and the judge said it can't be a prohibition, but it can be strongly discouraged. And they're willing to put that back in, and we just cleaned up a couple other conditions and added some detail to make things clearer.
just for clarification too, I'll read quickly the part that says air monitoring. It says the parties agree to engage in a mutually agreed upon entity at Range's sole expense to conduct air monitoring, including establishing a baseline vertical drilling, horizontal drilling, and hydraulic fracturing of the well pad. The parties agree that the mutually agreed upon entity will utilize an accredited laboratory and it will conduct the air monitoring at 4 cardinal points in accordance with 1, EPA methods 328A and 325B, and 2, the air monitoring plan as more fully described in Exhibit B. The entity will be jointly engaged. Reporting and resulting of the monitoring shall be made directly to the parties at regular intervals as set forth in Exhibit B and upon request from either party. That was actually something that we lost in court, and we were essentially doing it back, which is great. Do you want to hear? I can read you the emergency notification thing too, or you could just come get it. Anything else?
There was an amendment under number 4. First 50 feet proposed access road shall be paved with asphalt. Is this something we're considering for other industries as well, or like turnpike? And that's intended to knock the dirt off of the trucks.
This has
Before they
pretty
get
much
on the
been a
road.
standard in their industry. They've been doing this on all the well pads and other townships and that.
I thought they used stone.
No, they're paving. Some of them they paved a lot further than that. This was a very good meeting. And we agreed that this is going to be what we go by now. It's going to be a cookie cutter. They go come in for another well. They know what they got to do, and we know what we got to do. They know what to expect, and we know what to expect. It was a pleasant meeting. The gentleman sitting right there in a white shirt, I can't remember his name. He's a real tall guy, he's only 6'8.5".
Ron's very obsessed with your height. He continually tells me.
But now, it's gonna save us legal fees, it's gonna save them legal fees, a lot of legal fees. I mean, Range is very much willing to work with us wherever we want. And it improves a lot, and I think they're doing a pretty damn good job anymore.
So if I do I have a motion on 154/2021,
I'll make a motion.
or a second? It's been moved and
I'll
seconded.
second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
155/2021, consider adding gravel to the parking area of the Sorrento